The Disrupt Education vlog can be found on YouTube. To hear it in podcast form, search Disrupt Education on any of the following podcast platforms: Anchor, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Breaker, Castbox, Overcast, Radio Public, Pocket Cast, Spotify, or Stitcher. Welcome to this episode of Disrupt Education. I have theblackteacher.com, the curriculum advisory chair, a colleague of mine in business education, a disruptor of education, Jamal Maatuka. How are you?
I'm doing well, sir. Thanks for having me. I do appreciate it.
Oh man, well let's jump right in. Let's tell a little bit about who you are.
All right. So, I like to start off with my name because it is a mouthful. That's Jamal Maatuka. It's like you're sneezing. So, if you ever want to say that, I go by Coach Ma. I do a little coaching. I think first and foremost, I like to consider myself a husband, a father, an educator, a coach, and then an entrepreneur. And probably in that order, to be more specific. I was married in 97, so I've been a husband for a while and I need to give her a shout out to my beautiful wife, Shayla Maatuka. I became a father in 97 also, so the wife and I, we had spent 5 years together before we got married. So we did that, and we got married to have kids, and my oldest child is my daughter, Imani Naila Maatuka. I'm big on names. We'll talk about that in a second. My oldest son is Kalfani Jamal Maatuka. And then there's my youngest son, Jabali Adolfo Maatuka. Again, the wife and I, we believe there's power in names and even more in the naming. So much so that when we got married, my given name wasn't Maatuka. It was Coleman. And we wanted to set a new tradition for our family. And if something would ever occur during the maturation of our children, we wanted to make sure that their names spoke to them about at least who we thought they should be and what we expected of them. And so we live by this proverb. It says something like, what you'll do for yourself depends on what you think about yourself. What you think about yourself depends on what you know about yourself. And what you know about yourself begins with what you call yourself. So who you are and what you do has meaning. And so we wanted to make sure they understood what we meant for their names. That whole education piece, teaching for 11 years, CTE, career and technical education. For you know. A little bit of entrepreneurship, marketing, accounting, investments, multimedia, that type of thing. I wasn't originally a teacher. I didn't go to school to be a teacher. I happened to be coaching for 20 years. Sports are my passion: baseball, softball, basketball, of course, football being my first love. And it was through coaching that I realized, well, coaching, teaching, basically the same thing. And again, I went to school to be an entrepreneur. Back in our day, I don't know, I may be even a little older than you, G.
I'm 47 at the time of this taping. I don't know.
Right. Well, yeah, I got you by a couple of years, 49. And so I went to school to be an entrepreneur, but entrepreneur wasn't a major at the time. So I ended up becoming a finance major. I got my BS in finance at the U of I. I went on to get my MBA just as a thought of legitimizing myself, that if I needed to get a loan for a small business, it would add some type of legitimacy to me. It didn't. But I also wanted to be a lawyer and didn't get into law school, so I went to grad school to become, get the business degree. But long story short, right after school, after getting my degree, I started my first business, which was Black Thought. It was an arts and entertainment newspaper. It was a monthly. Did that about 5 years. And then we were having the baby and what have you. Once we started having our children, always wanted to be a father. Thought it was huge, big part of my life. And so I wanted to be there for those years. And, daycare is expensive.
Yeah.
And we figured, well, instead of paying others, why not have them pay us? We're entrepreneurs. We started a group home daycare called Village Daycare. And I'll talk about my educational background later, but I realized that I wanted my children to go to school already knowing how to read and write. They will enjoy school better. The teachers will praise them more, and school will be a great experience for them. So we did the daycare for 5 years. It did so well that we ended up becoming, we bought some real estate with it, right? And I'm all about education, so I became a real estate agent, and that turned into me becoming a real estate broker. And then I opened my own brokerage called Home Team Realty. And we were doing pretty well with the real estate at that time. They were giving property away, right? They would pay you to buy property. And then the housing market crashed, right? So from 07 to 08, the housing market crashed, and I had to find a job. And I remember, hey, I was still coaching throughout that whole time period. And I really wanted to become a high school coach. And to become a high school coach, you really need to be in the schools. So I had already had it in the back of my mind and figured out that I could take a couple of classes and get my certification. And so I ended up becoming a teacher. And that's how all of that ended up transpiring. So I don't know. That's who I am.
Yeah. Well, I think one of the things I love hearing about that is obviously understanding identity is huge with you. The mislabeling, I know we're going to get to that in our education talk, and understanding that, how to get a little bit ahead of the game, and what sacrifices you have to do with your children reading before they go to school. And also that career path is all over the place, man. It's all over the place. And I know you because we chatted. We actually met over the past year, and I hear that in everything you say with your students. And it's okay to go through that. And thank you for sharing that. Well, let's go back into your high school days, right? Since we're kind of into the traditional system, and what was your experience like there? And then into U of I, like what were the things in both of those pieces where you liked and maybe you thought this isn't working for me?
Yeah, great question, man. I'm first generation college, right? My father had a real tough life, did the most he could with what he had. He was easily the foundation of our family, but he dropped out of the school in middle school back in his days. I don't even know if they called it middle school when he was a kid, but 7th grade, 8th grade, he was done with school by then. My mother, on the other hand, she had a little bit of junior college in her life. I think she took a class or two in junior college. She was easily the one who instilled the importance of education. And even though neither one of them really took it to where they wanted it to go, they made sure that their two children, I have an older sister, knew the importance of education. Similarly, though, my father, who only had this middle school education, did well enough for himself where he got a job with the airlines. And to rise through the ranks, he had to move from one city to the next, which meant that I never stayed at a school for more than 2 years. And the funny thing about it was that I would go from the inner cities of Cleveland, Ohio, and Chicago to the suburbs of Chicago, right? And there was this huge duality in education. I would go from the inner city school where I'm almost the smartest kid in the class. I'm being praised for being so smart. And then I go out to the suburbs where immediately just by looking at me, they put me in the LD class. And back in our day, LD class meant this room in the bottom corner in the basement where, things really happened a little differently. But my mother, ever the proponent came in, argued for me, the advocate, get my son out of here. My son needs to be in whatever you call your accelerated or whatever classes. And I was an athlete. And at schools, I'd be the only black kid in the suburbs. And then I'd be this kind of educated kid in the inner city. So I'm fighting every day in the bathrooms. Kids want to, hey, you think you smart? Yeah, can you fight? And then you go to the suburban kid, oh, you're black, so you can fight. So yeah, I had to fight.
Right.
But long story short, I got to really see firsthand how education was an environmental thing. Depending on where you were, depending on what type of education you received. But even more importantly, while in these classrooms in the suburban schools, I also noticed that, especially these accelerated classes, that oftentimes the teacher would be presenting new information and students would already know it. And I'm like, how do you know this? It hasn't been taught. In the inner city school, you wait for a teacher to teach you. And I saw that in the suburbs, these kids are reviewing. They already know some stuff. And it changed my perspective, which goes back to me making sure my kids go to school already knowing how to read. So you're not teaching my kids. You're reviewing with my kids. My kids are practicing learning in your classroom as opposed to actually getting the knowledge from you. They'll get the knowledge from me. So that was one thing. Long story short, My father dies when I'm in middle school. So by the time I get to middle school, I lose my father. And to his credit, he had done everything correct up until that point to make sure that based on insurance and what have you, that our lives improved. It was the craziest thing to me. It was so ironic that when my father left, we were way more financially secure than when he was there. Sort of broke my heart, but at least there was stability, which allowed me at least 4 years. And we were in Elgin, Illinois during my high school years. I spent some time in Mount Prospect, Palatine, Medina, Itasca, in addition to the inner city of Chicago and Cleveland, Ohio. But my high school years ended up in Elgin, Illinois. And if that wasn't the most blessing of blessings, because at Elgin, there were some counselors in that high school who just took care of me.
Yeah.
Sure, I did well academically, so I guess I caught the eye of a few people. They never verbally told me. I don't know to this day who wrote my application to the U of I. Wow. I didn't apply to the U of I.
Wow.
I didn't apply to. I got accepted at 3 colleges without ever applying. Right. Even before that, someone had signed me up. Have you heard of Boys State at Eastern Illinois? So somebody signed me up for Boys State. Changed my life. I was like, oh, this is great. Met some kids who were doing some things. I'm like, wow, I need to really change my perspective on life. Then they sent me to an actuarial program, actuarial science, within the insurance industry or whatever. Sent me to an actuarial program in Washington, D.C. at Howard University. I'm like, whoa, what is this, right? So by the time I graduate, in the back of my mind, I'm not even sure if I'm a college student, right? Dude, can I do college? I don't even know. And I get these letters in the mail from 3 institutions, Howard, because I guess they saw me, Iowa State. Why would I apply to Iowa State? Iowa State, and then U of I. And then a buddy of mine said, yeah, I'm going to Iowa State. I said, okay, cool. And then he showed me some pictures. It was out in the country. Like, oh, no way. I'm not going out to the country. Little did I know the U of I was out in the country. Right?
Yeah.
But that's me not doing any research. I didn't visit any place. You just show up and teach me. But long story short, that's how I end up at the U of I. And I think because my father moved us around so often when I was young, I'm a homebody, and I'm still here in Champaign, right? I'm leaving. I ended up staying and doing my education, and it's a great town and a great place to raise a family. And so just like I said earlier, BS in finance, just because I wanted to do the entrepreneurship piece. I knew I was going to start a business. The MBA to back it up, because I love school too. And, again, there's something to be said about if your parents manipulate you correctly, because that's all our parents are doing in the maturation phase, right? Right. Trying to get your core values, right? Help you get your mission and vision together. So, they did a great job. I enjoyed school, didn't want to leave. One of the best times of my life. And here I am still involved in education.
Yeah.
That's my, I hope that answered the question.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, I love to hear the path of, I've never heard of somebody actually just, hey, you know what? Somebody applied for me. And I think that's really cool. I'm not sure, I think that's a struggle that we have in education, right? Like, there's not enough people like that to go around. And I feel like, in our conversations, we've talked about how do we throw a little bit of social emotional and mentoring. I know you're huge mentoring. I've talked to you about your coaching and as a father and those things. So now let's step into the big question, right? So you're doing some really cool things in the beginning phases of theblackteacher.com and making some changes. So I always ask, in today's world where we are right now, COVID, social injustice, 2020 just crazy. In a good way, I think, because I always find opportunity in things to learn and to grow. What do you think needs to change in education, or how are you changing education? To explain to everybody what you're doing right now. So those are kind of 2 questions, though. If you want to jump into, what did you see that needed changed, and then what are you doing right now? Right.
Okay, so, I consider myself a social activist. I think that was the root of this whole entrepreneurial zeal, was that, I need to change the world. The world has some issues. How can you change it? And I think I pinpointed on that if I really want to help anyone, I have to be willing to help them with their finances, right? So before anyone could hear anything I'm saying, I better be able to help them put food on the table.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was this whole business movement that if I can help you with employment, then we got something. We got a foundation we can move. That didn't work out. I'm not the best entrepreneur I wanted to be. Haven't made that multi-million-dollar business where I can hand out jobs. So I needed another path. And once I fell into education, I think like many teachers, you go in thinking, man, somebody just didn't tell them. All you need to do is tell them, give them the magic words, and life's going to be better for them. And then, of course, you realize there are no magic words. And your students carry so much more baggage into that classroom that we're back to putting food on the table again. Because, man, if a child's not eating, child has issues at home, it's hard to learn in a classroom. And then I realized, well, what are we actually teaching in these classrooms? And that started to make me rethink this whole essence of education. So now I'm at a point 10 years later, after teaching for 10 years, where I truly believe that education is nothing more than the relationship between the student and teacher, right? And a teacher is not a teacher until a student decides that you're a teacher, right? And then that whole decision is based upon caring. Students don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And if they feel you don't care, there's no relationship, right? So with that being the foundation, I got caught up on a Charles Barkley commercial a while back. I don't know if you remember it. Charles used to say, hey, I'm not a role model.
Yeah.
Just dribble a basketball and slam it does not mean I'm a role model.
Yeah.
And I'm like, Charles, man, you got this entirely wrong. You don't get to determine if you're a role model or not. The children determine if you're their role model or not. You get to determine if you're a good role model or a bad role model. That's what you get to determine. And so it's similar with teachers, right? Teachers do all this training. They go to school, they come out, and they know how to teach, but you're still not a teacher unless the student decides you're their teacher, right? So then I'm like, okay, well, how do we get to a point that we can help children to decide we're their teacher? Or better yet, give them an opportunity to determine who their teachers are. And so that's where I thought our school system got it wrong. We're trying to tell them who their teachers are, and students in no uncertain terms are really telling us, no, that's not my teacher. No, but he's standing in front of the room, he's teaching. No, not my teacher. I'm not listening to that person, right? And so when you look further into that, you start to realize we got some more institutional errors going on, which helps cement a young student saying, no, that's not my teacher. I'm a big fan of Josh Metcalfe, Chop Wood, Carry Water. Mm-hmm. So in his book, he talked about this thing called 2020, the 2020 vision. Here we go with 2020 again. He said your first 20 years should only be focused on how you learn, right? Forget what you're learning. Just focus on how you're learning. Your next 20 years, you should learn an expertise. Your 20 years after that, you should be that expert. And then your final 20 years, you should be a mentor to those trying to become what you are. And so in our schools, of course, we're too focused on what you're learning. Now in high school, at the most, you're learning the most fundamental aspects of anything. Mm-hmm. It's not even important if you can show mastery at this level, but we're all concerned with grades. We're concerned with percentages and what have you, when we should just be really focused on, well, how are you learning? Do you understand the important aspects of learning? Do you understand the different techniques of learning? Are you an audio learner, visual, tactile, kinesthetic? Forget algebra. I hate when people say, oh, when am I going to use algebra in my life? Listen, it's not important. Well, if you get the right job, you'll use algebra all the time, right?
Right.
But more importantly, it's not that you know algebra. It's that you can think algebra. That if I put you in a room where you know absolutely nothing, after 50 minutes, you could walk out of that room knowing something. And the only way that occurs is if you master your learning process. And we have to understand that everyone learns a little bit differently, right? And we really need to I think school needs to focus on helping you figure out what's the best way you learn. Mm-hmm. Because if I was asked what I could be good at, like, Jamal, you could be good at anything. What do you want to be good at? Well, I'd want to be good at learning. Because if I could be good at learning, I can become great at anything else, right? I can do it all if I become a good learner. So that ended up becoming the key. So if we take that and we add on to it that students are, the whole iceberg metaphor and the backpack metaphor, that they're coming into your classrooms with issues of homelessness, issues of malnutrition, issues of abuse. Sometimes maybe no issues at all. And even that's an issue, because if you don't have any strife in your life, right, then you don't know how to handle it. And then our educational institutions give them a story. It tells them that, some people are smart, some people are not, which is just false, right? Mm-hmm. It tells them that some people can learn and others can't learn. If we take our students who are put in our most behavior disorder classrooms, our most learning disabled classrooms, and we hand them iPhone, oh, well, it's amazing how they can learn that iPhone, huh? Right? Yeah, but we're telling them, no, you can't learn. That's a problem with me with our schools. I think nothing is further from the truth. Education, in its simplest form, is nothing more than an experience that changes your behavior, right? And the only way you can have an experience that changes your behavior is if you engage in the experience. And so what we're seeing happening in our classrooms is that we have a bunch of students, of course, who aren't engaging. And then we give them a grade and say, oh, you're not smart. That has nothing to do with us. What the grade really tells us is they haven't engaged in the class. They didn't find it important enough or what have you. Now, I'm not going to belittle that there's value to being able to go into a classroom, do what somebody asks you to do, and say it's why you get to move on to the collegiate level. And then it's why those college folks get paid big dollars, because we know, hey, you've proven over 8 years that if I ask you to do something, not only will you do it, you'll do it exactly how I asked you to do it. Mm-hmm. That doesn't assess intelligence. That has nothing to do with being smart. It has a lot to do with compliability and willingness to humble oneself. I mean, all valuable constructs. I get that. But I think our whole infatuation with grades and assessments is where we get it wrong. And then that takes me to, the origins of school, right? And so with the blackteacher.com, one of the things I like to do is really demystify everything. Even this world. Turns out this world isn't as old as we think it is, right? Mm-hmm. 400 years is about as much as we've had things going on, and there's time to fix it. So when we talk about school, I like to shock kids by, it was created in 1837 by Horace Mann. Oh, wait, school was created, right? It's not just a natural entity. And why did he create it? So we start to speak to Horace Mann and his ideologies. And then, there is I used to be big on racism, and I'm not so big on racism anymore. I'm really big on classism right now, right? Because even before race, we talk about the world not being old. Racism isn't old. I mean, racism's created. It didn't exist forever. But before racism, there was classism, right? And it wasn't so much physical characteristics that people cared about. It was really, what part of society are you from? If you were rich, hey, we treat you better. If you weren't rich, we keep you poor. And those folks, already, I guess, enjoying wealth, made sure they kept their wealth. Mm-hmm. And those institutions have been pushed down. And sure, they get codified in race, and they get codified in a lot of things where now we have this classist structure. But the real essence of life is classism. So when we get to that, there was some eugenics pushed through education. And many times this whole infatuation with test scores and grades were to legitimize the racial movement that was going, the racist movement going on, which was really just a classist movement to keep the poor and keep the rich, right? So that gets codified into this, who's intelligent, who's not. Let me brainwash you into believing you deserve the treatment we're giving you because you're not smart or because of what have you. And so the essence of it becomes, intelligence is based on your ability to change your circumstances, right? When we talk about what's important in school, we're talking about complex problem-solving skills. We're talking about critical analysis. We're talking about emotional intelligence. Can I read how you're feeling so you know how I feel? Mm-hmm. We're talking about interpersonal communication. Those are the things that will help you no matter what goes on. So when you walk into a classroom, whether it's my entrepreneurship class, biology, algebra, Spanish, it's not so much can you learn my business. Like, my business will be taught to you in the first week of your college program, right? That Spanish will be covered in the first quarter of the first. It's not so much the information that's important. It's, can you complex problem solve? I'm going to give you problems. Can you solve these problems? Mm-hmm. I'm going to have you think deeply about some things. Can you think deeply? And if you could do that for 50 minutes and going from one curriculum to the next, man, you really mastered your learning. And I think that's the essence of high school and why it's still so valuable. I am not anti-high school. I think it's very important. And it's even set up perfectly for us to master how we learn. Because, man, one kid said, Mr. Ma, how am I supposed to learn this stuff? And I have to go from your class to a Spanish class to a math class. I'm like, exactly, right? Because now we're really finding out if you can learn something. And yeah, sure. He's like, well, I only knew it for that week. Well, that's it. That's all you needed to know. Because that meant you could know it. That if we needed you to know it, you could know it. And that's the value of an education. And it goes even further to, okay, so if our high schools are training grounds, what is it we want you to have? And it is the ability to go into some place not knowing, because that's what's going to happen at your first job. You're going to show up not knowing. They're going to tell you some stuff, and you need to be able to leave knowing, right? And I think the thing that changed my mindset about education, that really got me onto this whole movement of the blackteacher.com was Carol Dweck and growth mindset. Mm-hmm. And he talked about, the two stories, the fixed mindset versus the growth mindset, that abilities are created and practiced and learned versus that you're born with it. And I was a fixed mindset guy. I thought I was born smart. I thought I was special until I had my experiences from inner city schools to suburban schools. And it quickly hit me, wait a minute, that's training. These kids have been trained here, and we're not getting trained at this other place. We're just walking in and being tested. So, that's where I am. I think education is the antidote to many of the problems facing the world. Ignorance, poverty, war, racism, all that stuff is fixed. The more educated you are, the less you push towards those things. The more educated you are, the more money you make. So life gets better. The more educated you are, the more you know about your body. I'm a practicing vegan right now. Mm-hmm. Every once in a while a vegan has to throw that out there. So you even survive better. The more you know, the better you live. You just do things differently. So education is paramount to the survival of society. I am a part of a community that's hurting. I'm a part of a community that's right now having a real issue with education. And there's only one or two ways you can look at it. You can look at it from a racist perspective that, yeah, you can't learn and that's the problem. Or you can look at it from a humanist perspective that, well, that institution isn't meeting the needs of these particular people, and why? What's going on? Why? And man, it's beholden upon me to figure out what's the why. And I don't have that answer yet, but I'm working on it. And that's what we're trying to do.
How do we do that better? How do we stop telling people get the A, check the box off, and really dig into how you learn? What are your suggestions there? What have you seen that has worked in that messaging? Because it's so important. We're at the beginning of summer, we're burnt out. We work very hard as educators, and I'm fired up right after that speech, man. I'm ready to go. But yeah, what can we do better to try to get that message of the growth mindset? Because usually people just getting the growth mindset, and a lot of people don't know what that means. You literally stated that out in education across the board. How do we do that? What are your suggestions there? What have you found?
So, just by studying Carol, these are my answers, and I love that fact that if you got a problem and the answers are out there, we live in the information age. That information's out there. You just got to put it together. And I think that's what I'm trying to do with the blackteacher.com is if you want to know something, here, this is where you can find out. And that sort of answers your first question. How do we get to this point of out of the fixed mindset into growth? For one, our schools aren't going to do it. They're just not made for it. Our schools are check the box. Now, teachers, and that's why you got to love teachers. That's our sanctity area. We get that room when those kids walk in. We can do some things. So when they walk into your room, well, growth mindset says you don't fret about mistakes. Well, all right, wait a minute. Grades and mistakes. So your grading, how you assess students have to change, right? So in my classroom, and I don't have it perfect yet, but I provide multiple modalities of assessment, right? So you got your sit and get kids. Hey, Mr. Mott, just give me a PowerPoint, ask me some questions, let me take a test. I get that. We got some kids like, look, I don't take tests well, for whatever reason. But man, can I give you a present? Sure. So I have 3 tracks in my classroom. One where sit and get, you do your normal. You're good at school? All right, you can do school in this classroom if you want to. You're not good at school? You don't have to do school in this classroom. You can give me a report. You can create a project. We got some stuff that you can do. You like the options of the 2 and want to miss and match? There's that option too, where you can do a little bit of the sit and get, you can do a little bit of the project base, and we can make that happen. But my only attempt with that is to help you engage in what it is we're doing. And let's be clear, I've come to the point, and I think that's the major issue, is we teachers take ourselves too serious. Right? I've come to the point I understand that what you're about to learn in my room may be earth-shattering to you now because you're 15, 14, 17. But in a minute, later in life, it's just a foundational piece to who you're going to become. So it's not so important that I hold you to knowing this. What I need you to do is what Carol says is, I need you to first believe. My first job is to get you to believe that you can achieve, that you could know this information, you can learn anything you want to learn, that you're empowered to be who you are. And that becomes within a relationship. That's that whole, okay, I need you to allow me to be your teacher first. And I think the only way I can get you to allow me to be your teacher is if I get you to believe that, hey, if we spend some time together, you can become a better man for it or a better young lady for it. So that's that first piece. And then the growth mindset says, well, you got to have a process. And this is where we get caught up, right? Our schools are based on results and scores. Forget that. I don't care what your score is. That's why in my classroom, you can take a test as many times as you want. So you get the grades you want. Now, too many of our kids have already been conditioned to believe, well, I'm not smart, so they take the test once, do bad, and don't come back. It's amazing. Really? You're not going to come back and redo this? No, I'm fine. Okay. Kids good at school, oh yeah, they'll come back. They'll come back 100 times. Get that grade that they want. But that's the whole part. I really want them to understand that, look, it's not the grade in this class. It's about the process. And what the process really is back to what we said. Well, what's truly important in school? Can you complex problem solve? Can you critically analyze situations? Do you have emotional intelligence? Are you creative? Can you bring something new to this, right? Do you have interpersonal skills? Can you communicate? Because without communicating, what good is knowledge, right? So those are the things I'm going to assess you on. So again, so when it comes to these classrooms, man, and I think the way we fix this, or the way I'm trying to attack it, is first through engagement. There has to be engagement. I have to, and you know, I've talked to a lot of teachers who say, man, I do a song and dance every day, trying to entertain these students to get. Yeah, that's the job, right? That is the job. Because if you don't do that, if they don't see you as their teacher, and not just in the title or the administrative form, but as a person who they actually can improve their lives from, you don't have a chance. So through the blackteacher.com, I'm really pushing this growth mindset, and I'm getting more in depth into it, right? Just like you were saying, people are just, they want to say, no, we do growth mindset. Yeah, we say mindset. No, that's not it, right? That doesn't do it. So the first thing I do in all my classes to get this paradigm shift, and it's been very, very successful, like over 5 years. First thing I do this thing called the speed test. I give them 3 minutes, and they have to take this test. They come in and they're mad. Wait, this is the first couple of days. How you got a test? Well, I said, just take the test. And we're going to find out who the smartest person is in this class. So as soon as they hear who's the smartest, some people shrink. And some people go, all right, I'm about to show you. You don't know I'm smart. They flip the test over. They start answering questions. They quickly realize it's a bunch of riddles, brain teasers, right? Inevitably, one student does well. The other students, not so much. Some, there's some scores. At the end, I asked them, I said, hey, because Johnny got 8 out of the 10 questions correct, does that make him smart? And, hands started to raise, yeah, he's smart, or nah, he's not smart, he was lucky, or whatever. And then I asked them, is it really intelligence we just found out, or was it experience? We would ask Johnny, why'd you do so well on this test? And Johnny inevitably would say something like, oh, my granddad used to always ask me riddles, and I quickly recognized that these were brain teasers, and I knew that the answer was going to be different. Or I used to read books about brain teasers, so I knew some of these. Or in my case, because a lot of people take my class again, Mr. Ma, you get this test every year. I knew all the answers already. I was like, hey, so now that you know that Johnny had this experience before he took this test, is he smarter than you guys, or is he just more experienced? And then, oh yeah, he's just more experienced. I said, okay, so what if we took all these riddles off this test and I replaced them with math questions, and Johnny got 8 out of 10 on the math questions? Would that make him smart? No, that would make him experienced with math questions. Good. What if we took the math questions off and I put Spanish on this test, and it was all Spanish, and he got 9 out of 10 on Spanish? Is he smart now? I say, no, he's experienced. So say, okay, so then we're no longer talking about intelligence in these classrooms, right? We're talking about gaining experiences. So say education is nothing more than an experience that changes your behavior. All you guys have to do when you come into this room is experience what it is we're going to do. If you can engage in these experiences, you could be quote unquote intelligence, if that's how they define it. Yeah, it was just experience. Okay, that's all I'm asking you to do. From this point on, your grade is based upon your experience. You're going to get a grade. That's how this thing works. I'm going to give you some grades. But with my grades, you can redo stuff as much as you want till you get the grade, because I want you to experience it. So you can experience it 20 times if you need to. I don't care how long it takes for you to show me mastery in your learning process. I just need you to show me. Right. And so that's how we start. Inevitably, I'm not saying all my students just fly through that, because they don't. I got some students who are still like, look, nope, not doing it. And then there's a few who buy into, but that is where our educational system needs to go. We need to quit harping on grades, assessments, percentages, and really start focusing in on processes. Give these children processes to solve problems. I'm real big on the complex problem solving matrix. Hey, define the problem. Too many times you can't solve a problem because you don't even know what the problem is, right? First, let's define the problem. And then let's just list as many alternative solutions as we can to that problem. Then let's assess those alternative solutions. And then let's choose one and actually do it. And then after we do it, let's reflect on how it went, and then redo that process, rinse and repeat. And if you can get students to just start thinking like that, well, you got something. But no one talks about the complex problem.
Right.
No one talks about critical analysis and what it is, cognitive ability. Heck, even creativity, that's something you could learn. You could learn to be creative. I used to say, man, I can't draw. Growth mindset says you can never say that, right? And it's true. As soon as you recognize that shapes, if you could make a triangle and erase the right part of the triangle and add a circle, all of a sudden you're drawing. So I'm real upset that it took me to 48 to get this understanding, right? To get to this point. But I'll be sure that no one I know has to go through all the problems I've gone through just to get to where I am. And that's what they say wisdom is. Wisdom is the ability to grow off of others' experiences. So here's the piece. If I create this thing called blackteacher.com, it has no value unless someone is motivated to look at it. So soon as you're motivated to look at it, you go to my website where you're already engaged. You went there for a reason. Now it's my job to keep you, so I better present it in a way that at least you'll hang out for a minute. But I think the real answer to your question, I'm sorry I was so long-winded on this. But the real answer is people of influence. So we started out talking about Charles Barkley and how teachers, and you can't be a teacher unless chosen. So we really need to find the people of influence with our youth that are struggling. Because inevitably, the children who do school well, it's not because of some innate want to do well in school. It's because somebody who's important to them said, hey, school's important. You need to go in there and do well. So, okay. So the people who aren't doing school well, we need to find that person who they hear, who they believe in, and then get that person to believe in to this education piece, right? And I think with age and maturity comes an understanding, even if you messed it up, that you can go, yeah, I should have did better in school, right? And if they can say that to the young folk who hears them, then you got them. And it's gonna be almost impossible for me to be that person for everyone.
Right.
But if I can create an entity that allows for those people who do believe that education is important, and then they got some youngster that they want to show that it's important to, that they can connect. People ask me, well, why are you charging for this, right? it's not because of the money. It's because it puts value on it.
Yeah.
Without any value, free, nah, it's free. It didn't mean anything, right? But just a little bit of value. Now somebody, man, I paid money for you to do that. You better go get that done. Okay, you didn't pay money. So that's deep, man. That's where we are.
That is, the mindset, the way we learn, how we learn, the problem solutions, take away the labeling and just try to figure out, what moves everybody from A to B. I think the best part about being a teacher, and I know we've had this conversations, is it's not the end all be all. We're students ourselves. It's a beautiful thing. So people can find you at theblackteacher.com. Is there another place, or is that going to show everything? I know you're building it. It's pretty cool to see your journey already in the short time that I've known you. Where else can people find you social media wise?
Yeah, I'm also doing the whole Facebook piece, but I kept it privatized yet. I don't think I'm ready to deal with yahoos who are ready to just argue stuff. So you got to be part of my clique to slide in there. But I'm open. If your history, I do a little research on you once you say you try to friend me. So you can friend me on Facebook. I do a little research, and if I find you to be of a like mind, man, I'll bring you into the fold. So we're doing it big. We're creating a community on Facebook. Of course, you can go to theblackteacher.com. You can email me, and then we can get around all that. I'm at theblackteachercte at gmail.com. Unfortunately, somebody already got the Black Teacher, and I guess if I get somebody, I'll buy it from them because they're not doing anything with it. You can click it; it doesn't even show up.
Squatting.
Yeah, right. Just waiting for me to come up with the right amount of money to get it from them. But by all means, I do have a number at the website. You can call me. So either one of those ways, everything's at the website, and I'm more than happy to discuss education with anyone. And there's a new piece to the Black Teacher we're working on. Look, I haven't even gotten the first piece done, right?
But hey, I know you. You're a builder, man.
Because I started off, we were talking about this earlier with this AP racism, right? I'm not a history teacher, not a social studies teacher, but I think it's important to even attack the foundation of why school may be going wrong for folks, right? So when you start to put the backdrop to education, and then even why education is important, because it solves all these problems, that then we can move on to the actual curriculum. I'm going to put my multimedia up there. So even adults, they want to learn multimedia, here's how you do it. You want to learn accounting? Foundational aspects of accounting. Here's how you do it. You want to learn a little bit about investing? Again, because if I'm an expert in investing, I wouldn't be doing this. I'd be on Wall Street making the money. But I got some fundamental aspects for you, some things you can take and put into your back pocket. But long story short, my first piece was to get this whole AP racism class up, and then tackle my CTE classes, and then get into workforce job related education, right? If you go to, like I met you at one of the teacher seminars with professional development, and we have so many people come in talking about job opportunities, but there aren't people qualified to do it. And the qualifications aren't hard, right? It's just like if you learn 2 computer languages, you could work for the state as a computer programmer, just working these 2 languages. And I don't know the languages. I can figure it out and teach the fundamental aspects of it, get you into a position where you can learn it quickly enough, and then go get this $60,000 job doing, and even if your background wasn't right, because again, we're about redemption within education, rejuvenation. And so say you do have a record or your life didn't go well early on, there are opportunities out there. Let's talk carpentry. Let's talk electrician, the plumbers union. Before you go see those guys, if I give you enough information that you could walk in there and do well. I was talking to a gentleman who's ex-military. He's a Marine, sergeant, just retired. I'm like, you're one of few folks who actually survived that process, who did well with it. There needs to be a class about that. So not only do I want to handle, traditional curriculum, but I want to get into, you want to be a hairstylist, before you go to hairstylist school or whatever, let me give you some foundational classwork so when you walk in, it's not all new to you, and you're part of this process now of how to do things. So when you walk into any room, you feel pretty comfortable about your ability to learn that information and then be able to communicate it to others.
Oh man, I love that vision, and I know you're going to do it because you do things. And but a true disruptor of education, Jamal Maatuka, theblackteacher.com. Thank you so much for being with us on Disrupt Education today, my man.
Hey, my pleasure, brother. I appreciate you.
All right, guys, we'll talk to you next time on Disrupt Education. Thanks for listening.